Beware immigration stories. Ask people who left their native country and emigrated to another one many years ago how they see their decision today, and you might get some very interesting stories. These stories will be particularly important if you are thinking about making a similar move. Are the people happy or unhappy today? This video will discuss immigration to Canada. However, the same approach can be taken for any other country. Every immigrant has a unique story to tell, which has to be taken with a grain of salt, especially if it is a success story. Since an immigration story is very personal, people are careful to tell theirs so that in the end, they look good and appear smart. But there is a hidden sub-story to the carefully crafted and polished success story, a sub-story that you are unlikely to hear. It involves the most important element, an external force or help that strongly contributed to the immigrant's success. This element is hidden because it would diminish the storyteller's personal contribution to their success. It may be an inheritance, financial help from the family, winning a lottery, or help from a stranger or former spouse. If the person tells you they started their business in the garage from scratch with $0, it might not have been from scratch after all, and it might not have been in a garage either. That doesn't mean their success isn't worth celebrating. Even if their starting position is excellent compared to others, success wouldn't have happened without an effort. If the storyteller's new life in Canada was a disaster, and they are willing to share their experience, you are probably dealing with a more honest person. However, external forces contributing to the failure might be exaggerated, while their personal contribution to it is diminished. The person might not mention a problem with addiction, an unwillingness to take the courses necessary for corporate success, or a pattern of overspending on non-necessities. To summarize, the success storyteller may exaggerate their own effort and undervalue external help, while the disaster storyteller might overstate external forces while diminishing their own contribution to the failure. Always be suspicious of every immigrant story and evaluate your own starting position when comparing yourself to somebody else. Would you be as successful as the other person in a similar position? Are your starting positions similar? Assess this as much as you can, but recognize that you might never find out the whole truth. The best way forward is to select your unique way, a path that works for you and your personality. Let's hear some unique stories. Story number 1. Dirk moved to Canada from the Netherlands after the Second World War and is very happy about his decision. According to him, the Dutch government paid for his ship ticket and gave him $40 to start his new life overseas. After he came to Canada, he worked a few jobs, then ended up working in the bank from where he retired. He was satisfied with his work and personal life. Dirk emphasized that he was able to start a new life in Canada with only $40. What Dirk did not say is that his sister already lived in Canada and was married to a Canadian. After coming to Canada, Dirk lived with his sister's family for a while. They also helped him find his first job, so he could spend his $40 on beer and entertainment. Story number 2. Kalpana came to Canada from India in 2005 and is absolutely satisfied. According to her, she immediately started a new translation business from home while she was still taking care of her newborn baby. She said that right from the start she was getting many orders because she is great at what she does. What Kalpana did not say is that she was married to an insurance company executive who was transferred to a Canadian subsidiary from the UK. Kalpana's first clients were in fact the clients referred to her by her husband. She also did not have to pay rent or a mortgage because her husband's income easily covered all their expenses for the first few years. She could start her new business as a hobby, not worrying about covering expenses or making a profit. This is a luxury not many people have nowadays. Story number 3. Edward moved to Canada from the UK in 1980 and regrets his decision. After working in a few retail stores, he ended up buying a clothing company franchise. He had a rough start. 5 years later, his wife divorced him. He could not see his kids as often as he wished to. His business was struggling almost all the time. According to him, he got stuck in Canada. He could not return to the UK because his parents had already passed away, and all his contacts from years ago were gone. People in his country of birth moved on with their lives and forgot about him. What Edward did not say is that he had a gambling addiction, and all the profit he made from his business he spent in casinos. This subsequently affected his marriage, and both his work and personal lives crumbled. Story number 4. Radu is an immigrant from Romania. He came to Canada in 2008. He has a master's degree in engineering from a university in Bucharest. After his arrival, Radu learned that in order to work as an engineer in Canada, he would have to complete some expensive exams that would require more than a year of study. The money he brought from Romania was not sufficient. His expenses for rent, food, transportation, and clothing started piling up. He needed an income immediately. He found a job in a food storage facility in Toronto. Radu still works there as a forklift operator, but hopes that one day he will be able to work as an engineer. Before Radu goes back to Romania on vacation, he makes sure he looks good. He loses weight before his trip, buys designer clothes, and brings expensive presents for his siblings, nephews, nieces, and friends. He rents a Porsche in Bucharest to make an impression. He knows it will be painful to pay his credit card bill once he returns to Canada, but he feels that he has to lie to his friends in Romania, or they will think he is a loser, and that would crush him. He fabricates a story that he works as a head engineer in a Toronto company, drives an expensive car, and lives in a big house. In fact, he shows his friends a picture of somebody else's house with a car in front of it, in the best area in Toronto, and tells them it's his. His family and friends in Romania envy him, and wish they had moved to Canada as well. Now it's too late for them because they are older, and they don't speak English or French. They tell their friends about Radu's success, and those friends tell others. It has a snowballing effect. New immigrants have made up such stories for centuries. That's part of the reason people always think the grass is greener somewhere else. They are the victims of immigrants' lies. What do these stories, starting with Dirk's white lie about $40 and ending with Radu's complete fabrications about his work and home, teach us? Since we don't have the big picture of other people's lives and situations, it is hard for us to judge whether a country is suitable for us based on their reported experience. If they say the country is good or bad, it is their own personal opinion based on their lives. Very limited and subjective. It might even be a complete or partial lie. Since we will never know a person's full story, and since we are as unique as Dirk, Kalpana, Edward, and Radu, we can't make a decision based on them. What can we do? We can talk to as many people as possible. Those who moved to Canada long ago, as well as more recent immigrants. We can compare the stories, check facts, and make a decision following our own statistics. And travel to Canada for a vacation first to see it with your own eyes. Every story is unique, since every individual is unique. Every lie is unique, since every individual is unique.